to create a weapon that destroys other humans.
Listen to me! The colonies are gone.
What are you talking about, gone?
What do you want in return for the Energizer?
I want you.
You just don't understand, do you?
Yes, I do understand.
Battlestar Galactica's darkness of space erupts in a flash of explosive light as a massive chrome warship opens fire. A colonial Viper spirals out of control, dodging laser blasts while a robotic monotone voice declares, "By your command!"
By your command.
Long before the acclaimed 2004 reboot captivated audiences, the original Battlestar Galactica launched into America's living rooms in September 1978, forever changing the landscape of television science fiction. Born in the wake of Star Wars' unprecedented success, Battlestar Galactica arrived at a pivotal moment in American entertainment. The late 1970s saw audiences hungry for space adventures, yet television networks remained skeptical that small-screen science fiction could attract mainstream viewers. ABC took an extraordinary gamble, greenlighting what would become the most expensive television series ever produced at that time, with episodes costing an astronomical $1 million each, equivalent to roughly $4.5 million today.
The information is not complete.
The financial risk was matched only by the creative ambition. Creator Glenn A. Larson envisioned something revolutionary. A space opera with the visual spectacle of cinema, but the narrative depth of serialized television. The result was a show that, despite its single-season run, would plant the seeds for decades of science fiction storytelling on television. What made the original Battlestar Galactica more than just another Star Wars clone was its fundamental premise, not one of heroic rebellion, but of desperate survival. The story of humanity's last survivors searching for a mythical Earth spoke to deeper anxieties of the Cold War era while offering a unique blend of space adventure, religious mythology, and family drama. Through its 24 episodes, this ambitious series would pioneer narrative techniques and visual approaches that would influence science fiction television for generations to come. When Battlestar Galactica premiered in 1978, it didn't just tell a compelling story. It revolutionized what audiences thought possible for television science fiction. The show's technical achievements began with its visual effects team, led by John Dykstra, who had just come off his groundbreaking work on Star Wars. Dykstra's expertise in motion control photography allowed Battlestar Galactica to feature space battles that, while constrained by a television budget, maintained a cinematic quality unprecedented for the small screen. The miniature work on Battlestar Galactica deserves particular attention. The titular Battlestar itself, a massive, intricately detailed model measuring over 6 feet long, became one of science fiction's most recognizable spacecraft. Each Colonial Viper fighter was painstakingly crafted, with multiple versions built for different shooting requirements. The production team developed innovative techniques to create the illusion of scale and motion, including the now iconic launch tube sequences showing Vipers catapulting into battle. Perhaps most memorable was the show's primary antagonists, the Cylons. Their chrome-plated armor and oscillating red eye became instantly recognizable to audiences. The signature Cylon eye effect, created using a rotating drum covered in Christmas lights behind a slit in the helmet, exemplified the ingenious practical effects solutions that defined the era. This simple yet effective technique created one of science fiction's most enduring visual motifs. Behind the scenes, Battlestar Galactica faced numerous production challenges. The legal battle with 20th Century Fox, who sued claiming the show plagiarized Star Wars, cast a shadow over production. While eventually settled out of court, the lawsuit added pressure to an already strained production schedule. The ambitious scope of the series continually butted against television realities. Each episode required approximately double the shooting time of typical television dramas of the era. the show's production design, led by John Chilberg II, created a distinctive aesthetic that blended futuristic technology with ancient influences. The colonial warriors' uniforms, with their leather-like material and Egyptian-inspired helmets, reflected the show's unique mythology connecting humanity's future to its ancient past. Sets like the Galactica's bridge combined functional industrial design with elegant touches, like the command center's rotating platform, creating spaces that felt both practical and visually engaging. Despite budget constraints that grew more severe as the season progressed, Battlestar Galactica maintained impressive production values through creative problem solving, reusing effects shots, repurposing sets, and focusing episodes on character development allowed the show to sustain its visual spectacle while working within television's financial realities. This pragmatic approach to ambitious storytelling would influence science fiction television for decades to come. Battlestar Galactica's enduring appeal wasn't built on visual effects alone. It was the show's characters and their struggles that truly resonated with audiences. At the center of this human drama stood Lorne Greene as Commander Adama, bringing gravitas and moral authority to the series. Fresh from his iconic role as Ben Cartwright on Bonanza, Greene lent immediate credibility to the science fiction setting. His portrayal of Adama as both a military leader and spiritual guide created a complex character, carrying the impossible burden of humanity's survival on his shoulders. Greene's commanding presence was particularly evident in the series pilot, where his grief-stricken reaction to the colony's destruction provided one of television's most poignant moments of loss. The heart of the show's narrative dynamic came through Richard Hatch's performance as Captain Apollo. As Adama's son and the fleet's most skilled warrior, Apollo embodied the tension between military duty and personal connection. Hatch brought a thoughtful intensity to the role, particularly in episodes exploring Apollo's relationship with Boxey,
Hey, Muffet, you want to see Boxy do a trick?
the orphaned boy he adopts after the colony's destruction. This father-son dynamic provided emotional depth unusual for science fiction television of the era. Hatch's commitment to the character was so profound that he would later spend years attempting to revive the franchise before eventually joining the 2004 reboot in a different role. No discussion of Battlestar Galactica would be complete without mentioning Dirk Benedict's charismatic portrayal of Lieutenant Starbuck. With his cigars, gambling, and romantic entanglements, Starbuck injected much-needed levity into the show's apocalyptic premise. Benedict's natural charm made Starbuck instantly likable despite his flaws, creating the template for the lovable rogue character that would become a staple of ensemble science fiction. The unlikely friendship between the by-the-book Apollo and the rebellious Starbuck offered some of the series' most authentic moments, particularly in The Hand of God, where they lead a daring raid on a Cylon base star. Perhaps the most fascinating performance came from John Colicos as the human traitor Balter. Television villains of the era typically lacked nuance, but Colicos brought surprising depth to his portrayal of the man who betrayed humanity. His scheming, survival-focused character introduced moral complexity unusual for genre television of the time.
Lieutenant Starbuck.
Colicos delivered Balter's calculating monologues with theatrical flair while maintaining psychological believability, creating one of science fiction's most memorable antagonists. The series' most powerful storyline, the destruction of the 12 colonies and the subsequent refugee crisis, resonated beyond typical genre fare. Scenes showing civilian ships struggling with limited resources, political tensions, and the psychological trauma of displacement tackled weighty themes rarely explored in television science fiction. The episode, The Long Patrol, particularly highlighted these elements, exploring how justice and social order function in a society under extreme duress. Behind the scenes, the casting process itself reflected the show's ambitious scope. The production actively sought established actors like Greene to lend credibility to the science fiction premise, while also taking chances on newer talents like Hatch. This blending of experienced veterans with fresh faces created an ensemble that balanced familiarity with discovery, a formula that would become standard practice for genre television in later decades. When Battlestar Galactica premiered on September 17, 1978, critical reactions were decidedly mixed. Major publications like the New York Times dismissed it as a Star Wars knockoff, focusing primarily on perceived similarities rather than the show's unique elements. Critics balked at the high production costs, questioning whether television could, or should, attempt such ambitious science fiction storytelling. Meanwhile, the ongoing legal battle with 20th Century Fox over alleged similarities to Star Wars cast a shadow over the series' early reputation. Yet despite critical skepticism, Battlestar Galactica connected powerfully with audiences. The 3-hour pilot film earned ABC its highest Sunday night ratings in years, demonstrating the public's hunger for space-based adventure. Throughout its run, the show maintained strong viewership, particularly among younger demographics, though ratings gradually declined as the season progressed and the time slot changed multiple times. The series' cancellation in April 1979 after just one season remains one of television's most controversial programming decisions. Despite respectable ratings, ABC executives cited the show's enormous production costs as the primary reason for its demise. The decision sparked an unprecedented fan campaign to save the series, with viewers mailing thousands of letters to the network, one of the earliest examples of organized fan activism that would later become common in television culture. In response to persistent fan pressure, a short-lived sequel series, Galactica 1980, was produced, but with a dramatically reduced budget and significant creative changes that alienated many fans of the original. Its poor reception seemed to confirm what many critics had initially claimed. Battlestar Galactica was merely an unsuccessful attempt to capitalize on Star Wars popularity. What's fascinating is how completely this perception would change over subsequent decades. As the original series found new audiences through syndication, home video, and later streaming platforms, appreciation grew for what the show had attempted rather than where it had fallen short. Elements initially criticized as derivative were re-evaluated as creative adaptations of space opera tropes to television's unique strengths. Hidden within Battlestar Galactica's single season were fascinating details that later fans would discover and celebrate. The show's incorporation of Mormon theological concepts, creator Glenn Larson was a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, provided a unique spiritual underpinning rarely found in science fiction television. References to the 13th tribe, Kobol as the original human world, and the Book of the Word, all connected to Mormon cosmology in ways most viewers, and even critics, never recognized. Another overlooked aspect was the show's ambitious attempt at serialized storytelling. While most episodes functioned as standalone adventures to satisfy network demands, Battlestar Galactica maintained a continuous narrative about humanity's search for Earth. This approach, balancing episodic accessibility with ongoing storylines, pioneered techniques that would become standard practice in later science fiction television. By the 1990s, what had once been dismissed as a failed experiment had evolved into a beloved cult classic, with conventions, merchandise, and a growing fan community celebrating the show's legacy. This dramatic shift in perception set the stage for what would eventually become one of television's most acclaimed reimaginings. Battlestar Galactica's single-season run in 1978 to 79 could have relegated it to the dustbin of science fiction history, a curious footnote in television's attempt to capitalize on Star Wars. Instead, this ambitious space opera laid groundwork that would influence science fiction storytelling for decades to come, culminating in what many consider its greatest achievement, inspiring one of the most acclaimed television reboots of all time. The 2004 reimagining of Battlestar Galactica stands as the original series' most direct legacy. Developer Ronald D. Moore explicitly acknowledged his debt to the 1978 show, preserving its fundamental premise while dramatically recontextualizing its themes for a post-9/11 world. What's remarkable is how many elements from the original, the refugee fleet, the religious undertones, the human-machine conflict, proved so adaptable to contemporary storytelling approaches. The original provided not just inspiration, but a robust narrative foundation that could support sophisticated explorations of politics, religion, and identity. Beyond its direct successor, Battlestar Galactica's influence rippled through science fiction television in numerous ways. Shows like Babylon 5 and Farscape adopted its focus on displaced civilizations and interspecies politics. Star Trek: Deep Space. Nine's serialized storytelling and darker tone showed clear Galactica influences. More recently, The Expanse's treatment of human factions in space and The Mandalorian's journey narrative both echo elements pioneered by the 1978 series. Perhaps most significantly, Battlestar Galactica helped establish television as a viable medium for ambitious science fiction storytelling. Its willingness to commit substantial resources to visual effects, despite budget constraints, demonstrated that television could deliver cinematic space adventure. This pioneering approach paved the way for today's era of high-budget genre television, where shows like Foundation and Star Trek Discovery operate with production values that would have seemed impossible in 1978. The original series also deserves recognition for its progressive elements that were ahead of their time. Its diverse bridge crew, featuring black and female officers in positions of authority, challenged 1970s television norms. Lieutenant Athena and Cassiopeia offered female characters with agency beyond typical supporting roles. While certainly imperfect by modern standards, these representations helped expand what was possible in mainstream science fiction. Culturally, Battlestar Galactica matters today because its central premise has become increasingly relevant. A society of refugees fleeing destruction, carrying their culture while searching for a new home, resonates powerfully in an era of global displacement and climate concerns. The show's exploration of how civilization continues under extreme duress feels prescient in ways its creators likely never anticipated. The technical innovations pioneered by the show continue to influence visual storytelling. The distinctive handheld documentary approach to space battles that defined the 2004 reboot deliberately contrasted with the original series' more formal compositions. Yet both approaches have influenced subsequent science fiction productions. The original series' practical effects work, particularly its detailed model photography, has experienced renewed appreciation in an era where practical and digital techniques increasingly complement each other. What's most remarkable about Battlestar Galactica's legacy is how a commercial failure, by conventional standards, transformed into a cultural touchstone. Its single-season run, once seen as proof of its limitations, is now recognized as having preserved its vision in a relatively pure form. Unlike many contemporaries that face declining quality over extended runs, Battlestar Galactica's brief, bright existence allowed it to maintain consistency and purpose. In the end, Battlestar Galactica's greatest contribution may be demonstrating the resilience of powerful storytelling. Its fundamental narrative, humanity's desperate search for sanctuary while pursued by their own creations, proved so compelling that it transcended production limitations, critical dismissal, and premature cancellation. Its journey from expensive gamble to influential classic reminds us that truly resonant stories find ways to survive, evolve, and thrive. So what do you think? Did the original Battlestar Galactica deserve its early cancellation, or was it truly ahead of its time? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into classic science fiction that shaped our modern media landscape.